The signal came through broken and weak. Commander Vecthar listened to it 3 times before he understood what it meant. His people on Epsilon Prime were in terrible danger. 20,000 Kelhari lived on that distant colony. They had built farms and homes there. They raised their children in peace. Now someone had attacked them without warning. The message was short and filled with fear. They came from nowhere. Dozens of ships. We cannot hold them back. They are taking everyone. If anyone hears this, please help us. Send anyone before they... Then the signal died. Nothing came after that. No more words. No more calls for help. Just silence. Vecthar felt cold inside. He knew what silence meant. His people were either captured or dead. Maybe both. He went to the Galactic Council as fast as he could. The council was where all the major species in the galaxy made decisions together. 12 different alien races sent representatives there. They were supposed to keep everyone safe. The council meeting room was huge and bright. Holographic screens floated in the air showing maps and data. Vecthar stood in the center where everyone could see him. His forearms shook as he tried to stay calm. Honored members of the council, he said. His voice came out as clicks and whistles, but a computer changed it into words everyone could understand. The Kelhari people need your help right now. Someone has attacked our colony. 20,000 civilians are in danger. We ask you to send military ships immediately. Ambassador Thelnix was a Chorusai. Her body looked like living crystal that changed colors when she felt strong emotions. Now she glowed a soft blue that meant she was thinking carefully. Commander Vecthar, she said, we understand this is hard for you, but the council has rules we must follow. We need to investigate first. We must check how dangerous the situation is. We need to plan carefully before we send any military forces. 20,000 people. Vecthar's voice broke. How much investigation do you need? They are being taken by raiders right now while we stand here talking. The Archon spoke next. The Archon was very old. His species had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. He believed in doing things slowly and correctly. Commander, we feel your pain. But sending council military ships is complicated. All 12 species must agree. We must fill out proper forms. We must vote on resource allocation. These things take time. Perhaps several weeks. Weeks? Vecthar could not believe what he heard. In weeks, my people will be sold as slaves across the galaxy. They will be scattered so far we will never find them again. The council members began talking among themselves. Some argued about procedures. Others discussed which forms needed to be signed. A few debated whether this situation was technically an emergency or just a normal criminal matter. Vecthar realized the truth then. The council would not help. Not in time. Maybe not at all. They cared more about their rules than about saving lives. A young Kelhari officer approached Vecthar quietly. He carried a small tablet computer. Commander, there is something else. A human ship was near our colony. They picked up our distress signal too. Vecthar felt even worse. Humans were the newest species in the council. They had only invented faster-than-light travel about 100 years ago. The other species saw them as primitive and weak. Their ships were small. Their weapons were not very advanced. What could one human ship possibly do against dozens of raiders? What did the humans say? Vecthar asked. The officer looked at his tablet. They said 3 words. Hold on, coming! That was 40 minutes ago. Commander, they did not ask the council for permission. They just went straight to Epsilon Prime. In the council chamber, Ambassador Lisa Grant sat very still. She was the human representative. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When the Archon finally let her speak, she stood up slowly. The council should know that Earth has sent help to Epsilon Prime. Our ships will arrive in about 18 hours. The room exploded with noise. Every alien began talking at once. Ambassador Thelnix turned bright red, which meant she was angry. This is against all our rules, Thelnix said loudly. The council did not give permission for military action. Earth has no right to send ships without our approval. No right to help people who are dying. Lisa's voice cut through the noise like a knife. The council can take all the time it wants to fill out forms. My people do not need permission slips to do what is right. The Archon looked very serious. His ancient face showed worry. Ambassador Grant, your species may be going into a fight you cannot win. These raiders destroyed a defended colony. What can one human ship do against so many enemies? Lisa smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was cold and sharp. Archon, you are asking the wrong question. You should be asking what one human ship can do before the rest of our fleet gets there. Nobody spoke. The silence was heavy and uncomfortable. Vectar watched this human woman face down the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She was not afraid. She was not apologizing. She was telling them that Earth would act whether they liked it or not. Far away in the darkness of space, a human ship moved between the stars. It was called the USS Phantom. It was not the biggest ship in Earth's fleet. It was not the strongest. But it had special abilities that other species had never bothered to develop. The ship could hide itself. It could move through space almost invisible to scanners and sensors. Other species had never needed this technology, because they could always see enemy ships from very far away. But humans had learned to fight wars where nobody could see very far. They learned to hide. They learned to sneak. They learned to attack from directions the enemy never expected. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair on the bridge. He was looking at a screen that showed the area around Epsilon Prime. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Paul Hayes, was reading sensor data. "Captain," Paul said, "I am picking up lots of ships near the planet. At least 30 vessels of different sizes. None of them are broadcasting identification codes. Pirates, then," Jake said quietly, "or slavers. The sensors show they are loading heavy cargo from the surface. The weight matches. It matches people, sir." Every person on the bridge understood what that meant. The raiders were not stealing supplies or equipment. They were stealing people. They were going to sell them as slaves. Commander Amy Foster was Jake's second in command. She moved closer to him and spoke softly. "Sir, 30 ships against us. 1 frigate. The numbers are not good." Jake's jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. "Then we change the numbers. Hayes, plot me a course that keeps us hidden from their sensors. Weapons, I want targeting solutions on the 3 biggest ships. Helm, get ready for combat speed when I give the order." "Sir," Amy said carefully, "our orders were just to observe and report back." "Our orders," Jake replied, "were to respond to a distress call. That is exactly what we are doing. Besides, I would rather explain to headquarters why we saved people than why we watched slavers work for 18 hours while we waited for permission." He stood up and straightened his uniform. "All crew, battle stations. We are going in quiet. When we are finished, those raiders are going to learn something important. Humanity does not negotiate with slavers. We destroy them." The USS Phantom disappeared from normal sensors. It became like a shadow, a ghost, something that was there but could not be seen. It began moving toward Epsilon Prime. On the planet's surface, Kalhari civilians sat together in dark detention centers. They had given up hope. They knew the Galactic Council would talk and debate while they were taken away. They believed nobody would come to save them. They were wrong. Space can be very dark. It can hide many things. And in that darkness, Earth's shadows were coming. They were coming fast. They were coming angry. And they were coming to teach the raiders a lesson about what happens when you hurt innocent people and think nobody will stop you. The Raider command ship hung in space above Epsilon Prime like a fat predator. It was a huge cargo vessel that someone had covered with stolen weapons. Inside the cramped bridge, Captain Zargoth looked at reports on his computer screens. He was very pleased with himself. The Kalhari were perfect victims. They were smart enough to be worth good money as slaves. But they were too peaceful to fight back very hard. This would be the most profitable raid his crew had done in years. "Give me the numbers," he ordered his second in command. The lizard creature next to him checked his screen. 27,000 units secured and processed. Raiders never said people or prisoners. They said units. It made the terrible thing they did sound like normal business. "Loading will be done in 6 more hours, the lizard continued. "The buyers are already sending us offers. This will make us rich, Captain." Zargoth's scarred face twisted into an ugly smile. "What about the council? Are they coming?" "Still arguing about procedures, just like we predicted. By the time they actually send any ships, we will be long gone. The cargo will be sold and scattered. Even if they chase us, they will find nothing. This was how the raiders always worked. They hit colonies that were far from help. They moved fast. They disappeared before anyone could organize a response. The elder species in the council were too civilized. They followed too many rules. The raiders used those rules against them. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "I'm getting strange readings. I see something on sensors, but then it disappears." "Ghost signals," Zargoth said. He was not worried. "Gravity fluctuations. This region of space is full of them. But sir, they are moving in patterns. It looks almost like every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. The tactical display showed 3 of their medium-sized ships. The icons that represented them suddenly went dark. The ships just stopped transmitting. What in the void? Zargoth jumped to his feet. Show me what happened to those ships. The main view screen changed to show one of the missing vessels. It floated dead in space. Emergency lights flickered weakly inside it. Long, precise cuts had sliced through its engine section and weapon systems. The metal around the cuts was still glowing hot from whatever had hit it. But there was no debris field. No explosion. Just surgical destruction. Those cuts, the lizard whispered in fear. That is focused plasma scoring. Military-grade weapons. But from what? Where is the ship that attacked? 2 more alarms sounded. 2 more raider ships on the far side of their formation went dark. Zargoth slammed his fist on the console. All ships, combat formation. Find the attacker. Sir, I do not understand. The sensor operator's voice shook. There is nothing on scans. No energy signatures. No mass readings. It is like they are being attacked by empty space itself. On the view screen, they watched another raider die. This time they saw it happen. Streaks of white-hot projectiles appeared from nowhere. They moved faster than anything Zargoth had ever seen. The target ship's shields flared bright and then failed in seconds. More of those precise cuts carved through the armor plating. The ship tumbled away powerless. There, the operator shouted. I got something. Just for 1 second, a heat signature from weapon discharge. Coordinates. 5 raider ships immediately fired at the location. They filled that area of space with plasma bolts and physical rounds. They hit nothing but vacuum. Whatever had been there was already gone. Then a voice came over the open communication channel. It spoke in perfect Galactic common, but with a strange flat accent that none of them recognized. Attention, raider vessels. This is the USS Phantom of the United Earth Navy. You are ordered to power down your weapons and engines immediately. Release your prisoners. This is your only warning. Zargoth felt confused first, then angry. Human? 1 human ship? He activated his fleet channel. All raiders ignore the warning. Find that ship and destroy it. There is only 1 of them. Actually, the human voice replied calmly, and Zargoth realized with cold terror that they were listening to his supposedly secure channel. That is not quite accurate. There is one of us that you cannot see. But do not worry. You are about to understand what that means. 3 more raider ships died in the next 60 seconds. Every time it was the same. No warning. No way to track the attacker. Just sudden, overwhelming violence from an enemy that refused to appear. The USS Phantom was hunting them the way a big cat hunts in tall grass. It struck from hiding and vanished before they could respond. Somebody explain to me, Zargoth roared, how 1 ship is destroying my entire fleet. The lizard was working frantically at his computer. Captain, I found information. Earth ships. There were rumors about them. They built their military around something called stealth technology. They learned to fight wars in an environment without faster-than-light sensors, so they developed ways to hide even in open space. That is impossible. Every species can detect mass and energy. Not if you make them very small. Look at this analysis. The lizard brought up technical data. The human ship is running almost cold. Very little power output. It uses heat sinks instead of radiators. The hull has a coating that absorbs sensor waves. To our equipment, it barely exists. And when it fires, another raider exploded. When it fires, it shoots from a different position than where we think it is. It feeds us false information. It stays in our sensor blind spots. Zargoth watched his fleet die ship by ship. 15 vessels now were just drifting hulks. The human ship had crippled them so precisely that most of the crews were probably still alive inside, just stranded. Unable to fight or run. The humans were not even trying to destroy them completely. They were making a point. Pull everyone back, he ordered. His voice sounded hollow. Tight formation around the command ship. Overlap all sensors and weapons. If they cannot hide, we can overwhelm them with volume of fire. The surviving raiders clustered together. They created a network of overlapping sensors and gun coverage. Surely, Zargoth thought, surely the human ship could not penetrate this defense. Captain Morrison watched the raiders bunch up on his tactical display. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. They still do not understand. Hayes, are our packages in position? Yes, sir. All 16 are ready. Hours earlier, while approaching the planet, the USS Phantom had quietly released small drones. Each one was no bigger than a suitcase. They were nearly impossible to detect. Each one was now positioned around the Raider formation in a perfect sphere. Activate them. Around the Raider fleet, 16 points in space suddenly blazed with sensor energy. To the Raiders' instruments, it looked like 16 human warships had just appeared simultaneously. They were surrounded in a perfect sphere formation. Panic erupted. The Raiders opened fire in all directions. They shot at ghosts. They wasted ammunition on empty space. Their tight formation broke apart as ships maneuvered wildly, trying to avoid enemies that did not exist. And in that chaos, the USS Phantom attacked. It dropped its stealth systems for exactly 30 seconds, long enough to unleash every weapon it had into the scattered, confused formation. Railgun rounds punched through hulls. Missiles found engines. Plasma torpedoes carved through weapon systems. When the Phantom vanished back into stealth, 7 more Raiders were disabled. Zargoth stared at the carnage. His hands shook uncontrollably. 22 ships. One human vessel had destroyed or disabled 22 of his ships, and they had never even gotten a clear shot at it. "Captain," his communications officer called weakly, "the human is hailing us again." Morrison's voice was colder now. "You have 2 options. Option 1 is to power down immediately, surrender your crews, and release every single prisoner. Option 2 is that I continue what I am doing until there is nothing left but wreckage. You have 60 seconds to choose." Zargoth looked at his remaining ships, his broken fleet, his ruined reputation. He understood something in that moment that would soon spread throughout the criminal underworld. Humanity was dangerous, not because they were stronger, but because they fought in ways nobody else had imagined. They were patient. They were precise. And they were absolutely merciless when they believed they were doing the right thing. "We surrender," he said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Across the Raider fleet, ships began shutting down their weapons and engines. On the surface of Epsilon Prime, in the dark detention centers, Kelhari prisoners heard their guards suddenly running away in panic. They heard the ships above going silent. They did not understand what had happened yet, but above them, invisible in the darkness of space, a single human ship hung victoriously. The USS Phantom had done the impossible. One small vessel had defeated an entire fleet, not through superior firepower, not through bigger ships or better shields, but through cunning, stealth, and absolute determination. Commander Vekthar would receive the message in just a few minutes. The colony was secure. The Raiders were neutralized. The prisoners were safe. His people were saved. Earth's shadows had arrived first. They had come when nobody else would. They had fought when nobody else could. And the galaxy was about to learn that humanity, despite being young and small by galactic standards, was not to be underestimated. The USS Phantom reactivated its stealth systems and disappeared from all sensors once more, but its presence would be felt across the stars. The Raiders had learned a hard lesson, and soon everyone else would learn it too. When humans said they were coming to help, they meant it, and nothing would stop them. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was already happening when Lisa Grant walked into the chamber. The holographic displays were showing live video from Epsilon Prime. 23 disabled Raider ships floated in orbit. Their crews were in custody. On the planet's surface, Kelhari civilians were coming out of the detention centers. They were shaken but alive. Ambassador Thelnix was speaking when Lisa took her seat. Her crystalline body was flashing angry red colors. "This is a clear violation of Council authority. Earth had no permission to engage in military action. This sets a very dangerous precedent." The Archon nodded his ancient head slowly. "Ambassador Grant, while we acknowledge that the outcome was good, the human ship acted without authorization. The Council cannot function properly if member species conduct independent military operations." Lisa stood up. Her face showed nothing. "With respect, Archon, the Council was not functioning at all. 20,000 civilians were being loaded onto slave ships while we sat here debating procedure. The USS Phantom did not violate Council authority because the Council had not exercised any authority. We simply filled a vacuum." "A vacuum?" Thelnix's colors flashed brighter. "We were following proper protocol. Military intervention requires assessment, resource allocation, and strategic planning. These things take time. Time those people did not have," Lisa replied sharply. "While you were planning, one human ship accomplished what this entire council was too slow to attempt. Perhaps the question is not why we acted, but why you did not." The chamber erupted with angry voices. Several ambassadors demanded that Earth be punished. Others more quietly expressed grudging respect. Commander Vekthar sat in the observer gallery watching the chaos. He had submitted his official report that morning. He had been very careful to describe exactly what the humans had done. The Archon called for order. Ambassador Grant, your ship's captain, reported that he eliminated the threat. Can you explain what this means? Our scans show the raider ships disabled but mostly intact. Did the USS Phantom actually destroy anything? Lisa pulled up tactical data on the holographic displays. Captain Morrison engaged 30 raider vessels. He disabled 23 without any loss of life to raider crew members. The remaining 7 ships retreated before they could be engaged. Every hostile ship was surgically crippled. Their weapons and engines were neutralized. No civilian casualties. No collateral damage. The raiders are alive and in custody, waiting for council justice. The chamber became quiet as the council members looked at this information. An ambassador from the Trill species spoke up. The Trill had fought wars for 10,000 years. They understood military matters. Ambassador Grant, I have reviewed the tactical reports. This level of precision is extraordinary. My own people would have suffered losses achieving the same result. How did one ship accomplish this? Captain Morrison used stealth approach, advanced electronic warfare, and superior tactical positioning. He fought smart, not just hard. But the technology, Thelnix interrupted. Your stealth systems. The Council has no record of such capabilities in Earth's military files. Have you been hiding military assets from us? Lisa's smile was thin and cold. We have been honest about our capabilities. The Council simply never asked the right questions. You assume that because we are young and our ships are smaller, we must be primitive. You never considered that we might have developed different solutions to the same problems. The Trill ambassador leaned forward. He seemed genuinely curious now. Different in what way? Every species in this council developed faster than light travel before developing sophisticated stealth technology. You could always see your enemies coming from light years away, so you built bigger ships, stronger shields, and more powerful weapons. Earth did not have that advantage. We spent 100 years fighting wars where both sides were limited to light speed sensors. We learned to hide. We learned to misdirect. We learned to strike from unexpected angles. When we finally achieved faster than light travel, we brought those combat doctrines with us. She pulled up historical files from Earth's databases. We have submitted these records before, but I suspect nobody read them carefully. We built submarines that could hide beneath oceans for months. We created aircraft that were invisible to radar. We developed entire military operations built around deception and surprise. We are not stronger than you. We are just much harder to hit. The Archon was silent for a long moment. His ancient face showed something that might have been shame. And your captain's decision to act without authorization? That was also part of Earth's military doctrine? That, Lisa said carefully, was Jake Morrison making a command decision in the field. He saw civilians in immediate danger. He had the capability to help. He chose to act. Earth's military philosophy empowers individual commanders to make moral choices, even when those choices are politically inconvenient. That is a dangerous philosophy, Thelnix muttered. What happens when one of your commanders makes the wrong choice? Then we hold them accountable, but we do not punish them for doing the right thing just because it embarrassed the bureaucracy. Lisa looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. This council has spent 3 hours debating whether to sanction Earth for saving 20,000 lives. Perhaps that is the real problem here. Commander Vekthar stood up in the observer gallery. Archon, may I speak? Permission was granted. Vekthar walked down to the main floor. His forearms moved with deliberate purpose. Honored Council, I am the one who sent the distress call. I sat in this very chamber and begged for help while my people were suffering. I was told to wait. To trust the process. I believed my people were lost forever. He turned to face Lisa directly. Then one human ship, smaller than most vessels in this chamber, accomplished in hours what the Council could not accomplish in days. My people are alive because Earth acted while the Council debated. Whatever sanctions you impose on the humans, please remember this. When the Kelhari needed help desperately, only one species answered that call. The chamber was completely silent. The Archon's face showed clear shame now. Commander Vekthar, the Council extends its formal apologies for the delay in our response. Your people's suffering was unconscionable and we failed you. Then make sure it never happens again. Vekthar replied firmly. reform your procedures, empower your members to act quickly, or accept that younger species like humanity will continue to solve problems while you debate the proper forms to fill out. The session continued for another hour. Many things were said, but the outcome was inevitable. No sanctions would be imposed on Earth. Instead, the Council commissioned a review of its emergency response protocols. Lisa knew it would take years to implement any real changes. But it was a beginning. As the session ended, the Trill ambassador approached Lisa quietly. Ambassador Grant speaking unofficially, many of us are grateful for what your ship did. But I must ask something. The USS Phantom is one vessel. How many more ships like it does Earth actually have? Lisa considered her answer very carefully. The truth was that Earth had 73 stealth frigates similar to the Phantom, plus another 100 ships of various designs that incorporated similar technology. But there was value in uncertainty, in letting potential enemies wonder. Enough, she said simply. We have enough ships. The Trill's expression suggested he understood perfectly what was being left unsaid. He nodded slowly. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place, I think. On the bridge of the USS Phantom, still in orbit around Epsilon Prime, Captain Morrison watched Kalhari civilians board transport ships that would take them home. His crew was exhausted but satisfied. They had done something that truly mattered. Paul Hayes approached him with a data tablet. Sir, we are receiving a lot of messages. From who? From everyone. Fleet Command is recommending you for a commendation. The diplomatic corps is suggesting they might want to kill you. The Kalhari government is offering you honorary citizenship. And apparently, sir, you have become somewhat famous. Morrison frowned. He did not like fame. Famous how? Hayes pulled up news feeds from across the Galactic communication network. The story was spreading incredibly fast. 1 human ship against 30 raiders. A perfect tactical victory with 0 friendly casualties. But it was not just the military success that had captured everyone's attention. It was the speed, the decisiveness, the willingness to act when the established powers would not. They are calling us Earth's shadows, Hayes said. Ships that appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before anyone can respond. Some species are terrified of us now. Others are fascinated. Everyone wants to know what else humanity has been hiding. Morrison thought about this carefully. He had simply followed his conscience and his training. Nothing more than that. But he was starting to understand that his actions had implications far beyond one rescue mission. Get me a secure communication channel to Fleet Command, he said quietly. They need to know what we have started here. Because the galaxy had just learned a new and important truth. Humanity might be young in the grand scheme of things. They might be small compared to the elder races. They might be the newcomers on the galactic stage. But they were absolutely not to be underestimated. They did not wait for permission to do what was right. And they had spent a very long time learning how to fight effectively in the dark. The elder races had ruled the galaxy through strength and ancient tradition. But traditions could be challenged. And shadows humanity had learned long ago were often more powerful than light. The game had changed. Earth had proven they could act independently. They could protect those who needed protection. And they would not be stopped by bureaucracy or outdated procedures. The galaxy would never be quite the same again. 3 weeks after the incident at Epsilon Prime, Captain Morrison stood in the briefing room of the USS Phantom. He was looking at a holographic star map. Red markers showed locations where raiders had attacked colonies in the past year. There were dozens of them. Green markers showed where human ships had been sent to respond to new distress calls. There were 15 green markers already. Admiral George Fletcher appeared on the communication screen. His face was serious and lined with worry. He was calling from Earth Fleet Command, many light years away. Jake, we have a situation developing, Fletcher said. Ever since Epsilon Prime, every small colony and trade route in 3 sectors has been calling for Earth protection. The Council is getting very nervous about this. Nervous about what, sir? We are just responding to legitimate distress calls from people who need help. Nervous about the precedent you set. You showed that Earth can project military power in ways they cannot match or counter. Now smaller species are bypassing the Council entirely. They are asking us for help instead. The political implications are significant. Commander Amy Foster was standing beside Morrison. She crossed her arms. So we are supposed to let people suffer because it makes the Council uncomfortable? Fletcher's expression softened slightly. Nobody is saying that, Amy. But we need to be smart about how we handle this. Earth has 73 stealth frigates. That is a powerful force, but it is not nearly enough to police the entire galaxy. We are stretching ourselves dangerously thin. Morrison studied the star map carefully. Admiral, these raiders operate in the gaps between Council protection. They hit colonies that are too far from help, too small to defend themselves properly. Somebody has to respond to their calls. I agree completely, which is why Fleet Command is authorizing Operation Shadowline. Jake, you are being promoted to Commodore. You will command a task force of 8 stealth frigates. Your mission is to establish rapid response protocols in the frontier sectors. Amy's eyes widened in surprise. Sir, 8 ships to cover this much space? That seems impossible. It is what we can spare without leaving Earth itself vulnerable. But those 8 ships can appear to be in multiple places if you coordinate them properly, and the psychological effect of Earth's presence will be very significant. These raiders are used to operating without fear. Your job is to change that equation permanently. Morrison accepted his new orders, but his mind was already working through the difficult logistics. 8 ships, dozens of potential target zones, raiders who now knew that Earth was actively hunting them. This would be a very different kind of warfare than Epsilon Prime. On the Kelhari homeworld, Commander Vekthar faced his own political challenges. He stood before the Kelhari Council of Elders. They were debating his proposal to accept Earth's Emergency Defense Pact. You propose, Elder Meltara said coldly, to place our entire security in the hands of a species that has barely been in space for 1 century. This seems like madness to me. Elder, with great respect, the Galactic Council failed us completely. Earth saved us. The choice seems very clear. The choice, another elder countered, makes us dependent on an unknown power. What do we truly know about human intentions? What do they really want? Vekthar's forearms gestured emphatically. I know that when my people were being loaded onto slave ships, 1 human captain risked his career and his crew to save them. I know that Earth has extended similar protection to 17 other colonies since then. I know that raiders now actively avoid systems where human ships patrol. These are facts, not speculation. But at what cost? Meltara pressed. The humans refuse any payment. They ask for no territorial concessions. They claim to want nothing but friendship. In my long experience, Commander, nobody offers something for nothing. There is always a price. Vekthar had anticipated this argument. Perhaps humans operate under a different philosophy than we are used to. Their species spent centuries divided into competing nations on their homeworld. They learned the hard way that cooperation serves everyone's interests better than conflict. They call it enlightened self-interest. By ensuring galactic stability, they ensure their own security as well. The debate continued for many hours. But eventually the vote came. The Kelhari would accept Earth's protection. They were joining a growing coalition of species who were placing their faith in the newcomers rather than the ancient council. Across the galaxy, in the lawless region called the Drax Expanse, the surviving raider captains held a very different kind of meeting. Zargoth stood before the Syndicate Council. This was the loose coalition of pirate lords who controlled the criminal underworld. His reputation was destroyed. His career was over, but he still had information they needed. You failed catastrophically, Syndicate leader Vorash stated flatly. 30 ships against 1. This is humiliating for all of us. The humans fight in ways we have never encountered before, Zargoth protested weakly. Their stealth technology, their tactics, their willingness to are irrelevant to this discussion. You let 1 small ship destroy your entire operation. Vorash's multiple eyes fixed on Zargoth with cold contempt. However, your failure has provided valuable intelligence. We now know what Earth is capable of doing. More importantly, we know their limitations. A holographic display activated. It showed the current deployment of Earth's ships across known space. They have perhaps 100 vessels total. Impressive for a young species, yes, but completely insufficient to cover the entire galaxy. They are reactive, responding to threats as they appear. If we force them to spread their resources too thin, they will inevitably fail. Another pirate lord leaned forward. He was a Kresh whose body had been heavily modified with cybernetic implants. What exactly are you proposing, Vorash? Simultaneous strikes across multiple sectors, 20 different locations, all coordinated attacks happening at the same time. The humans cannot possibly be everywhere at once. Most of our operations will succeed. And when the galaxy sees that Earth's protection is unreliable, this foolish faith in the newcomers will collapse completely. Zargoth felt a cold certainty in his gut. You will start a war with Earth. We will remind everyone of their proper place in the natural order. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. That is how the galaxy has always worked. The humans are trying to change that ancient equation. They must be shown the complete futility of their naive idealism. The plan was set in motion quickly. Across 30 different systems, Raider cells began preparing for the largest coordinated attack in decades. They would strike hard, strike fast, and strike simultaneously. Earth's shadows would be forced into the open light. Their limitations would be exposed for everyone to see. Back on the USS Phantom, now the flagship of Morrison's new task force, Lieutenant Hayes detected something unusual in the communication networks. Commodore, I am picking up increased chatter on known pirate frequencies. It is heavily encrypted, but the sheer volume is significant. Morrison and Amy exchanged meaningful glances. Can you do pattern analysis on it? Working on it now, sir. But if I had to guess, based on the patterns, this looks like coordination. Multiple criminal cells are communicating with each other, synchronizing something big. Force dispersal, Amy said quietly. They are going to hit multiple targets at the same time. Force us to choose who we can save and who we have to abandon. Morrison pulled up the deployment map showing his task force positions. 8 ships spread across 3 sectors. If the Raiders struck simultaneously at 20 different points, they could respond to less than half of them. The mathematics were brutal and absolutely clear. Get me a secure communication channel to Fleet Command and every ship in the task force immediately. We need to completely rethink our strategy. Over the next 72 hours, Morrison worked intensively with his ship commanders to develop a new approach. They could not physically be everywhere, but they could create a convincing illusion that they might be anywhere. They seeded hundreds more sensor drones across the frontier. They established rapid deployment protocols. They began coordinating closely with allied species who were willing to serve as their eyes and ears across vast distances. The Kelhari, deeply grateful for their rescue, offered their extensive long-range sensor network. Other species contributed intelligence assets and patrol ships. What emerged was an informal but effective network of cooperation, with Earth's stealth ships serving as the rapid reaction strike force. It was not a perfect system. It would not save everyone, but it gave them a real fighting chance against the coming storm. As the Raiders prepared to spring their carefully planned trap, they had no idea that Earth's military had spent centuries perfecting one very specific skill, the ability to turn tactical disadvantages into strategic victories. Humanity had fought while outnumbered many times before in their history. They knew exactly how to make 8 ships feel like 80. The game of shadows was about to escalate dramatically, and the galaxy would learn a hard lesson. Underestimating humanity was always a serious mistake, because humans did not just fight with ships and weapons and technology. They fought with determination, creativity, and an absolute refusal to accept that some battles were simply unwinnable. The Raiders thought they had finally found Earth's critical weakness. They were about to discover their own. The attacks came at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. 23 simultaneous raids happened across 6 different sectors. Each one was precisely coordinated down to the second. Raider fleets hit mining colonies, trade stations, and agricultural worlds with overwhelming force. They expected chaos. They expected easy victories. They expected proof that Earth's protection was nothing but an empty promise. They got something completely different. On the bridge of the USS Phantom, every alarm screamed at once as the tactical display exploded with red distress signals. Morrison watched the threat markers bloom across the star map like deadly flowers. His 8 ships could not possibly respond to all of them. Each red marker represented civilian lives at terrible risk. "Commodore," Paul Hayes called out urgently. "We are receiving encrypted burst transmissions. It is coming from our network, the network." Over the past 3 weeks, Morrison's task force had worked closely with 17 different species to build an early warning system. Now that investment was paying off in a big way. The Kelhari sensor arrays had detected the Raiders massing hours before the actual attacks began. Allied ships, both civilian vessels and light patrol craft, had been quietly repositioned near the most likely targets during the night. "Activate Response Protocol Omega," Morrison ordered calmly. "All ships execute pre-planned deployments immediately, and launch the surprise package." Across 6 sectors, the coordination was absolutely beautiful to watch. The USS Phantom and 3 other stealth frigates accelerated to full combat speed, but they were not heading toward the nearest attacks. They were heading straight toward the raiders' staging areas and supply bases. 4 more human ships positioned themselves strategically at key jump points, ready to intercept any raiders who tried to flee with prisoners. And then the surprise activated. At 15 of the 23 attack sites, what appeared to be human warships suddenly materialized on every scanner. The raiders, expecting minimal resistance, found themselves apparently facing Earth military forces at nearly every single target. But the ships were not real. They were sophisticated decoys that Morrison had seeded over the past 2 weeks. Insurance against exactly this kind of coordinated mass attack. The decoys projected false sensor signatures. They broadcast threatening messages in multiple languages. They maneuvered like real warships. The raiders had no way to know which contacts were genuine threats and which were elaborate ghosts. At the Velgris mining colony, a medium-sized raider fleet prepared to land assault teams on the surface. Suddenly, 3 apparent human frigates appeared on their sensors. The raider commander remembered very clearly what had happened at Epsilon Prime. He immediately pulled his entire fleet back into a tight defensive formation. The 3 contacts circled the colony like hunting predators, never quite coming into visual range, always staying just at the edge of reliable sensor detection. The raiders waited nervously. And waited some more. Precious minutes ticked away while they tried desperately to determine if they faced real threats or clever decoys. By the time they finally realized the ships were sophisticated illusions, a real human frigate called the USS Shadow had dropped out of stealth directly behind their formation. It disabled half their ships in the first devastating salvo before they could even react. At the Thoran trade station, the raiders never even made it into attack range. Kalahari patrol ships, carefully coordinated by human tactical officers, had been pre-positioned along the most likely approach vector. When the raiders emerged from faster-than-light travel, they flew straight into a carefully prepared ambush. The Kalahari ships could not match the raiders in raw firepower. But they did not need to match them. They just needed to slow them down and keep them busy for 8 critical minutes until the USS Wraith arrived to finish the job. The pattern repeated itself across all the sectors. The raiders had made elaborate plans for facing Earth's 8 ships. They had not made any plans for Earth's ability to coordinate dozens of allied vessels into a unified force. They had not anticipated the multiplication of presence through technical deception. They had not expected every species in the region to become an extension of the human sensor and communication network. Vorash, the syndicate leader, watched his carefully coordinated attack dissolve into complete chaos from his command ship. He sat safely outside all the battle zones, monitoring the operation remotely through encrypted channels. What he saw on his screens made his blood run ice cold. How is this possible? He demanded angrily. How are they everywhere at once? His intelligence officer was frantically analyzing the tactical data streaming in. They are not everywhere, Lord Vorash. Deep analysis suggests only 8 actual human ships are engaged in combat. But they are using allied forces extensively. They are using decoys and false signatures. They are using pre-positioned defensive assets. They knew we were coming, Lord Vorash. They had time to prepare. That is impossible. Our communications were heavily encrypted using military-grade systems. Not encrypted well enough, apparently. The humans have access to Kalahari sensor networks, Thronian intelligence services, and 24 other allied information sources. They have built a real alliance, Lord Vorash. One based on genuine mutual protection rather than fear and intimidation. Vorash stared at the tactical displays as raider after raider reported either engagement with human forces or immediate retreat due to unexpected heavy resistance. Of the 23 carefully planned attacks, only 4 had achieved any initial success in actually capturing prisoners. And even those 4 raider groups were now completely trapped, unable to escape through the jump points where human ships waited patiently in ambush. Order everyone to pull back immediately, Vorash commanded. His voice sounded hollow and defeated. Any ship that has not completed their raid must abort the mission right now. Those ships with prisoners should scatter on random vectors and hope they get lucky. But his order came too late. Morrison had accurately predicted the retreat command. His ships were not positioned at the attack sites anymore. They were positioned at all the likely escape routes. The raider ship Fortune's Edge was carrying 200 prisoners from a successful raid on an agricultural colony. They jumped to what their navigation computers said should be a completely safe system. Instead, they emerged from faster-than-light travel to find the USS Phantom waiting for them. Its stealth systems were completely dropped. Its weapons were hot and ready. This is Commodore Jake Morrison of the United Earth Navy. You are surrounded and completely outgunned. Release your prisoners immediately and surrender your vessel. You have exactly 30 seconds to comply with this order. The raider captain looked desperately at his sensors. He only saw one human ship, just one. There is only one of them. We can fight our way past in 20 seconds remaining. 7 more raider ships suddenly jumped into the same system. They were all fleeing from different failed attack sites. They saw the USS Phantom waiting and, recognizing it instantly from the legends that were already spreading throughout the entire criminal underworld, they immediately activated emergency faster-than-light jumps without even bothering to check their navigation calculations. 2 ships collided with each other in the rushed escape attempt. 3 more jumped directly into the dangerous gravity well of a nearby star and were never heard from again. The Fortune's Edge surrendered without firing a single shot. Across all 6 sectors, the story repeated itself over and over. Of the 23 raider attacks, 18 were completely prevented before they could capture anyone. 4 managed to take prisoners initially, but those captives were all recovered within just a few hours. Only one single raid succeeded in actually escaping with prisoners. 1 ship carrying 50 terrified people. Morrison himself personally led the task force that tracked them down just 6 hours later. The coordinated attack, carefully designed to expose Earth's fundamental weakness, had instead revealed a terrifying new truth about humanity. They did not need to be physically everywhere. They just needed to be smart enough and well-coordinated enough to make every potential enemy think they could be anywhere at any moment. 3 days after the failed mass attack, Morrison stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time he appeared via holographic link from the Phantom's bridge. The chamber was more crowded than usual. The successful defense had attracted serious attention from species across the galaxy. Commodore Morrison, the Archon began formally. Your official report indicates that your task force, with extensive assistance from allied species, successfully repelled the largest coordinated pirate attack in recorded history. The Council formally commends your efforts and those of your allies. Thank you, Archon. But the real credit belongs to our allies as much as to Earth. The Kelhari, the Throni, and 17 other species contributed vital intelligence, ships, and coordination. This was a truly collective victory. Ambassador Thelnix, who had been so harshly critical just weeks earlier, spoke up. Her tone was different now, more thoughtful. Commodore, you have essentially created an alternative security network that operates outside traditional Council oversight. Some members still find this development concerning. Morrison's expression became harder. His jaw tightened. With sincere respect, Ambassador, we created a security network because the Council's traditional oversight was not protecting anyone effectively. We did not seek to replace the Council. We sought to fill dangerous gaps that the Council could not or would not cover adequately. The Trill Ambassador stood up to speak. Perhaps the real question is not whether Earth's network is appropriate, but whether the Council itself should adopt similar operational methods. The Commodore has clearly demonstrated that rapid response and close alliance coordination are far more effective than our traditional military deployment models. Now the chamber immediately erupted into intense debate. Morrison listened carefully as the elder races argued about protocols, jurisdiction, and the proper role of Council military forces. He had heard all these arguments before many times. Finally, Commander Vekthar, now officially representing the Kelhari on all security matters, rose to address the Council. Honored members, I have a formal proposal to present. Rather than endlessly debating Earth's independent actions, why not learn directly from their proven success? I formally move that the Council enter into an official partnership with Earth's Frontier Task Force, combining our collective resources to protect all species more effectively. The debate intensified dramatically, but the final outcome was becoming increasingly clear. Earth had proven not just their impressive military capability, but their broader ability to coordinate diverse groups, innovate under pressure, and inspire genuine cooperation among many different species. They had accomplished what the Council, for all its ancient age and vast authority, had consistently failed to achieve. They had made people across the galaxy feel genuinely safe. Back on Earth, Admiral Fletcher carefully reviewed the final casualty reports from the engagement. Minimal Allied losses in the fighting. Over 400 raiders successfully captured. Nearly 3,000 civilians rescued, who would have otherwise been sold into slavery across the galaxy. It was an overwhelming victory by any reasonable measure. But Fletcher understood this was just the beginning of something much larger. Earth had forcefully kicked the hornet's nest. The Syndicate would adapt their tactics. Other threats would certainly emerge, and humanity's growing reputation as the galaxy's protectors would bring many new responsibilities that would be difficult to manage. He opened a direct communication channel to Morrison. "Jake, Fleet Command wants you to return home for a proper ceremony and formal promotion. You have certainly earned both." Morrison was standing on the Phantom's observation deck, silently watching the distant stars. "I respectfully decline, sir. My proper place is out here on the frontier. There are still more colonies that need active protection. There are still more raiders that need to learn that humans do not abandon innocent people in need." Fletcher had fully expected that exact answer. "Understood completely, Commodore. You are hereby authorized to expand your task force to 16 ships as they become available from Earth. The President is officially calling this the Frontier Protection Initiative." Rather catchy name, actually. "Politics," Morrison muttered with distaste. "Politics that authorize more ships, substantially better equipment, and strong diplomatic backing for your operations. Do not dismiss it so quickly. You are genuinely changing the galaxy, Jake. Not through raw force, but through the powerful example you are setting." After the communication ended, Amy Foster joined Morrison at the large viewport. "Do you honestly think it will last? This brief moment where we are seen as the heroes? Probably not for long. Someone will eventually challenge us seriously. They will test our limits carefully. They will find our weaknesses eventually, but maybe by that time the galaxy will have learned something truly important. What is that? That real strength is not just about having the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It is about consistently doing the right thing, even when it is extremely hard, especially when it is hard." He turned to face her directly. "Earth spent many centuries learning that painful lesson through countless wars. Now we are teaching it to the stars. Across the entire galaxy in 1,000 different languages and 100 distinctly different cultures, the story spread like wildfire. The story of how Earth's shadows arrived when absolutely no one else would come. How one species, remarkably young and small by galactic standards, had looked directly at suffering and said firmly, 'Not on our watch.' It was not the end of piracy, slavery, or violence in the galaxy. Evil would always exist somewhere, but it was definitely a beginning. A clear turning point where the established order finally realized that the newcomers from Earth brought much more than just technology and military ships. They brought a hard-won philosophy that had been forged in the terrible fires of their own bloody history. That true civilization meant actively protecting the defenseless, that real power meant accepting responsibility, and that sometimes, even the smallest light could banish the darkest shadow. The Galactic Council would eventually adopt many of Earth's methods and doctrines. Species across all known space would look to humanity, not just for military protection but for genuine inspiration. And though Earth would certainly face serious challenges, painful setbacks, and terrible tragedies in the years to come, they had established something profound that would echo across the centuries. They had proven beyond any doubt that when the desperate call for help went out into the void, when innocent people suffered and no one seemed willing to act decisively, Earth would come without hesitation. Not for glory, not for conquest, not for payment or reward. They would come because it was right. They thought no one would come to save them. They were completely wrong. Earth's shadows had arrived first, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again.